Okay, good evening to one and all. Thank you so much for coming. It has been raining cats and dogs outside, and you are still here. And this Friday evening, I think it means a lot to us. It also shows that you are really interested in this topic, right, called AI. My name is Ken Lam. I'm from the local community engagement office. Again, welcome NTU. For those of you who are just visiting NTU for the first time, I hope you will take some time to explore NTU itself. It has been transformed from a university to a mini city. Yeah, so a lot of nice places to see and to watch. Now, before we start, I have a couple of housekeeping matters, and of course, a couple of good news for you since you are here, right? Housekeeping, of course, in terms of emergencies, there are doors by the side as well as behind you, first thing. Second thing, may I also request you to switch your electronic gadgets to silent mode? Now, good news is, first of all, we will have a very engaging professor to share with you this evening, of course, with a couple of other panelists as well. I'll talk to them later. The other piece of good news is this. Now, in line with Skills Future Singapore's effort to push industry-relevant training programs in 8 emerging areas identified by the Skills Future series, now NTU College of Professional and Continuing Education, in short, called PACE College, will be partnering with E2I to provide some seminars, okay, under the big umbrella of Industry 4.0. So these free seminars, yes, these are free, provide basic insights of various topics in Industry 4.0 and let participants have a taste of what the new technologies have brought into the picture of today's manufacturing and engineering industry. So the participants will be able to earn a certificate of completion after attending at least 3 out of the 4 free seminars. So for example, upon completing 3 out of 4 following seminars, which will be held in November and December, the participants will be able to get this certificate in Introduction to Industry 4.0. For example, we have this Virtual Reality in Design, Analysis and Manufacturing in November, 2nd November. Introduction to Robotics, 8th of November. Augmented and Virtual Reality, Fundamentals and Applications on the 3rd of December, as well as Cyber Security on the 11th of December. So if you attend 3 out of these 4 free seminars, you can actually get a certificate. So you can actually sign up later after the lecture at about 8:50. You can actually sign up outside. There's a booth you can sign up as well. So not only for you, but also for friends. If you have friends who are interested in these topics, please do sign up. These are free of charge for you. Also, it's part of our effort to actually encourage Singaporeans to have this lifelong learning. And of course, upon completing these seminars, if you wish to learn more about these topics, you can actually sign up for our heavily subsidized, at least 70% for Singaporeans, short courses or semester-long courses with more in-depth coverage to have a focused learning objective. So again, those free seminars is a precursor. If you like the topic, you can actually go for a more focused, more in-depth coverage. So those are things that I think we are encouraged to run. I think this is part of the Skills Future initiative. So do grab the opportunities. Now, the program for this evening will be quite similar to what we've been doing. Our speaker will give the talk. Following that, she'll invite a couple of the panelists to discuss about today's topic. And after that, we actually open to the floor for you to ask questions. So as I said, we'll try to finish at about 8:50 so that for those of you who are interested, you can actually sign up the courses outside before you leave the campus. Okay? Now, we have been running this for since 27 July last year. So why we are doing this? We actually want to leverage on our strengths in education research to impact to benefit the community. And one of the initiatives is to actually run this Did You Know Monthly Talk series, public lecture. So one way is to actually help our Singaporeans to appreciate research and its benefits. So we really appreciate that you actually can make time to attend all these talks, and I'm seeing quite a number of familiar faces as well. So today, our speaker, we are very honored to have invited Professor Nadia Taman over here. Prof. Taman joined NTU Singapore in August 2009 as the director of the Interdisciplinary Institute of Media Innovation, in short we call it IMI. She is the author of dozens of books, has published more than 600 papers on virtual humans, virtual worlds, and social robots, organized major conferences, and delivered more than 300 keynote addresses, some of them at global events such as the World Economic Forum. During her illustrious career, she also established the Mira Lab in Switzerland, a groundbreaking interdisciplinary multimedia research institute, where she has helped develop cutting-edge interdisciplinary research in computer graphics, computer animation, and virtual worlds, and producing impactful work that synergizes art, fashion, and computer graphics. In NTU Singapore, she revolutionized social robotics by unveiling the first social robot called Nadine. Nadine is not here today. She's somewhere at AIA. I think later on, Prof. Taman will talk about her. Capable of mood and emotions, as well as remembering people and actions. So without further ado, let's put our hands together to welcome the speaker for tonight, Professor Nadia Taman, please.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is really my great pleasure to be here with you tonight. And when I saw the weather at 6 o'clock, I thought, maybe I don't need to give my talk because, you know, when it is a Friday evening and suddenly a thunderstorm. So I'm so happy to see so many people here. So thank you for your coming and thank you for your interest. And I hope you will like what I like to speak about today. Okay, so what's my major idea for all my talk and how it starts is to say that, you know, today there is not one article that doesn't speak about AI or robots and all kinds of things. But, you know, it's not new. It's not new because in antiquity, if we look 400 years before Christus, you know, if you are also in Greece, you can see a remaining of that. There was a giant Talos who was dreaming, at least, to defend the island of Crete. So people in the mythology were thinking that this giant, you can see, is full of bronze, was a giant, and was able to push back all kinds of armies and enemies. So you see, in the mentality of the people, if we look 24 centuries before ourselves, our century, we can see, or more than that, we can see, because it's 400 before Christus, we can see that already at that time, even if they were not able to do something, they were dreaming and imagining. So the essence of that dates very back into the culture. And what is nice is the proof of it. You know, we have found in archaeological setting some pieces, money pieces, where we can see, you know, this monster, and that means that it has a lot of importance at the time. So if we go further, you know, and now we come a bit more into science, some people say it's the earliest robot in the history. And you know what is nice is Philo, and they have found a book with many chapters, and in several chapters, one of those describes the mechanical part of this kind of robot. And what this robot is able to do, you see, in one hand, he has like a jug of wine, and on the other one, the visitor could put a glass, and then with some mechanics, we can see with small, simple drawings here, he was or she was able to give wine to visitors and also to mix a mixture. So if we look more in detail, it's quite interesting because, in fact, it's early mechanics. So you see, and for me, what is more interesting is to think that, you know, we are 250 years before Christus, and we were pushing technology, let's say what we knew at that time, to have like servants that can make automatic things. So you see, nothing is new today. It's just a continuation of technology. So they have started, and you will see over time we continued. So there are fantastic museums where you can see that. And also what I think, because I'm working on social robots, you know, when you see this, is today a social robot. It's dressed like a human. The only difference, okay, is limited, and there is no software, of course. But let's say it's the beginning of the long journey we are going through. Now, if you look at this, of course, we move now very fast through the centuries. But of course, everybody has learned about Leonardo da Vinci, and he also was dreaming to have some automaton. Automaton, that means, for example, this one, you see, it is a robotic knight. And again, is to serve people. In fact, the robotic knight was automatically, you know, moving its head, lifting its visor, and also being able to sit down and get up. So you see the mechanics, of course, at this time in the 16th century was more advanced. But what we can think in terms of essence, the needs that at that time, you can notice that again, at that period of time, the researchers, the community was willing to have this kind of servants that do things for us. So that's a continuation of the dream of humanity. So if you see this one, and you know I'm originated from Switzerland, so of course at the early age, I could go with my parents to see museum, and in Switzerland, we have a lot of automatons. You know, it's the land of, let's say, watches, but the same people were dreaming to make automatons. And you can see fantastic, you know, realistic, very, let's say, artistic figures. They are able to sing, to write, to draw, to play piano. So you see all that. You can also find in Germany, in France, but there are many of them that still today are original and function. So you see the dreams continue. In this time of the 18th century with Newton, physical law, and all the technological development, people were completely, if you look at the literature, completely enthusiastic to develop this kind of automaton. So they are really our ancestors of robots. And it's always in terms of, you know, to make life pleasant, to have somebody to serve us, and so on. So I just would like to show you an example of one robot that is absolutely a marvel in terms of beauty and also in terms of technology. And this was a BBC, let's say, video.
One of the most remarkable realizations of CAM technology is a device in the shape of a small boy. It's perhaps the world's most astonishing surviving automaton. What's on this card is a piece of writing made by a 240-year-old machine. One of my favorite machines, one of the most magnificent automata of the 18th century. It's this boy, this writer. He was built in Switzerland by Pierre-Jacques-Droz, one of Switzerland's greatest clockmakers. And the aim was, I think, to mechanize reason and automate the passions. Jacques-Droz was about 50 years old in the early 1770s when he designed and built this masterpiece.
So this is the fantastic part.
Inside the boy are almost 6,000 parts. What's astonishing is that every one of these crafted components has been refined and miniaturized to fit completely inside the body of the boy himself. What Jacques-Droz did was to use the technologies of homeostasis, of miniaturization, to build really a true automaton. Inside the little writer is all his source of energy and all the machinery that drives him. He works on his own.
He's autonomous in some way.
At his core is a great stack of cams. As these cams move, 3 cam followers read their shaped edges and translate these into the movement of the boy's arm. Working together, the cams control every stroke of the quill pen and exactly how much pressure is applied to the paper, so as to achieve beautiful, elegant, and fluid writing. With this sublime machine, Jacques Droz had reverse engineered the very act of writing.
Anyway, I will maybe move forward with other news. So you see that in this century, 18th century, with so much enthusiasm for physics, then you saw application at that time, and I can imagine that everybody was talking about it. What is nice about these kind of examples is they are still working, original, and there are still people who are able to repair them. Now, I tell you that if we in robotics would have to build this kind of robot, I think today we are unable. It's too complicated, so many small motors. I mean, we make robots much simpler today. So anyway, it's quite interesting. And what I would like to come more forward is what are the main inventions that have pushed forward the discovery? So one of those is, of course, you have all heard about the algebra of Boole that was able to translate every decimal system into binary system. So thanks to this, having a binary system means that you can, let's say, understand everything through 0 and 1. It is, let's say, a signal or no signal. So it's a simplification in an algebra that will explain some complication of the more complex algebra. So this is, let's say, 100 years ago, a major discovery, because without that, we would be unable to have computers today. And knowing that George Boole was working pretty much in his own place without great distinction during his time. So this is quite interesting to know. Now, the other thing which is also important, and you will see afterwards why, is in 1940, so we're moving now in the 20th century, you know, we have discovered that, in fact, our brain is a network of neurons. And in this neuron, it fires all or nothing pulses in signals. So, in fact, it is the interpretation, mathematical interpretation of our brain, how it functions. It's similar to the Boole algebra. So we have algebra for our functioning of the brain. You know, the brain is where we have our intelligence. So these two discoveries I found very important to mention, because then we can move forward. Forward with what? With computers. And who says computers? We also speak of software. So a time where everybody has, also like today, but at least it was much earlier, 1950, coming mostly from MIT or the US, is the big question was, can a machine think? And I think many of you have heard about the Turing test. Is in fact, what we say is if you have two people in a room, one is, let's say, a machine, and the other one is a human, and they like to communicate together, and we cannot see the communication if it comes from a machine or it comes from a human, then the deduction was, or the thinking in the 1950s was that the machine is intelligent. So this was a lot of debates, and this is not something we always refer to, because today, even if you have very realistic robots, a lot of people tell me, did you pass the Turing test? That means that Nadine, you will see later on, is she able to behave like a human where we don't see differences? But Nadine is much more complex than just sending written text. You know, this was more written text only. So now we move forward, and moving forward, we arrive to now, at the period of now. So why suddenly, from the 50s, where everybody was discussing in the 60s, is a machine capable of thinking, why suddenly it comes back? And it comes back in a way that everybody says society will change, it's a big disruption, and so on. And what are the major changes in the technology? So today, or at least this last year, the major change is that suddenly, due to the speed of computers, the memory, we were able to drag a lot of data. And before, data were like, okay, a few data, they have no meaning. But today, the fact that we have a lot of data makes that they have meaning. We can link them together, we can rely to them to find new data or new models, and with AI algorithms. And that's the reason why having huge data makes you more capable of defining new model. And for example, if I recognize a face and I have millions of data, the computer will be much more capable of detecting a new face because the computer is able to look very quickly through millions of data and find which is the face I'm looking at, which we humans are totally incapable to do. So another thing what we see on the top of the slide is how makes it possible to have so many data is because we analyze gestures, we analyze face, we analyze sounds, we analyze also the speech. So we have so many signals we can analyze. Before we couldn't keep them in memory, before we couldn't handle them in a computer, let's say in a computer, but now all this is more and more possible. So we are coming to take advantage of this. And then, of course, we speak of AI again. In fact, in the 60s or 50s, we were already speaking of that, but now we speak everywhere about AI. So, in fact, the AI, what is it? If we look the definition, is the capacity to imitate the intelligent behavior. And as I said before, where do we find this AI? A lot of people think it's like, you know, a magic potion we put inside a computer. In fact, what you have to know, for every application we do, we have data, we have specific algorithms, and these algorithms are linked to the specific data, and then is how we can find new data and new models or new comprehension of situation. And what are these situations? For example, mostly when you have millions of images, you can, let's say, detect from images, recognize people inside an image, tree, objects, and so on. When in the dynamic, the computer is able, through many images, to analyze gestures, emotions, and so on, behavior, global behavior, social situations. The research is ongoing, but let's say we are fully going in this way. So you see, AI algorithms are applied to specific captured data which are organized, and in some way afterwards we can analyze, interpret all that. So you see, in fact, it gives a lot of people who are speaking of that. So you have seen probably you in the literature, some people speak of singularity. It's a point where the machines will be as intelligent as us, or maybe more. And some say, very famous people say, it will never happen. Some others say it will happen in 16 years, imagine so precisely. And some say it will come in 2100. So it's quite a lot of opinions, even between scientists. So at least you see that the debate is again very hot today, as it was in the 50s and 60s, but we are further in the knowledge and the capacity of producing intelligent machines. So what I would like to tell you is a bit what we do in our institute, and I will define a bit the idea of how to use this AI. You see here is a nice situation. In fact, you have different people. The two of them, the two guys in front, are in Singapore. And Nadine, this is which robot I will speak about, maybe you have seen it somewhere, is also in Singapore. And behind you have somebody who is in the US. And here you have an avatar, a virtual human that represents someone that cannot join the meeting. So, you know, this image is a bit our society of tomorrow, is what I name a mixed society. And also the idea that we can be together even if you are over the planet. So what we are doing in our research is to be able to track information from one side and also the other side and recreate a common environment where we feel together. So this is all the research we do. And what is complex in this, and I will show you more detail, is how a robot can be aware of the situation and behave according to the attitude of the others. So you see, we are fully in social robotics. That means that to have a companion as a robot, the robot has to understand your gesture, your emotion, what is the situation, and react also through the speech, and that the robot understand, react in an appropriate way. So it's a complete interdisciplinary research, and I would like to give you the present and a view of the future of that. So when I say what is a social robot, by definition, a social robot is a robot, according to Wikipedia, that can interact and communicate with humans following social behaviors, and the rules attached to them. So this is quite important in comparison with a robot that, for example, can paint or clean a floor. This one has no social rules to follow except the path and the place to do. So that's a big difference because we are working here in the communication. And that should be also autonomy. We are not working on robots we guide. We are working on robots companions that are able to be our partner of tomorrow and that can help us in many situations. So again, you have seen in the antiquity with Talos where they were dreaming to have a giant and so many others. I didn't give a course on the antiquity. But you see today, and since a long time, we are also dreaming, and the dreams are coming from producers, film producers. You see, for example, Metropolis. I don't know if you have heard of it, but it's an incredible film because in 1927, as you can see, Fritz Lang made an avatar that looks like his beloved wife who has passed away. But all that, there's no avatar, no technical things. But this is the thinking. Again, he lost his wife and replaced her by an avatar. So the film is upon the relation between, this avatar and the man who lost his wife. So that's quite early on time because it's in 1927. And then, of course, you have heard of Terminator. It's more like Talos, like a super giant, and Matrix, of course. So all this is imagination. And one thing is the more recent, which has been redone recently, is Westworld series. Maybe you have seen this. And in Westworld series, they use a lot of robots, but in fact, they are humans that look like robots. So very often people tell me, but your robot doesn't behave so well as in the Westworld series. But in the Westworld series, they are humans, they are actors. So when you go to technology, it's something completely different. But this, what is interesting to see, that's the imagination. What our film producers are thinking, what can happen, and so on. Now, if we go to the reality, now we go to robotics, technology. So this is another story. We do something with reality. So you see, I try here to put the most well-known robots. There are others, but let's say I try to put the humanoids. So, of course, here you see the NTU robot, Nadine, with myself. And you see also others that are done in Japan. Professor Ishiguro, who gave some talks also in our institute, is also producing quite nice robots. I think Japan has pretty much the lead in this. And you have heard about Sofia, who got the nationality in Saudi Arabia. Maybe today is not the best nationality to get, but she got this as a robot, which is very strange because, for me, a computer to get a nationality, but okay. At least she is pretty well known for that also. She looks a bit more robotic, as you can see, as the two others, but okay, she's more. David Hansen, who produced her, is coming from Disney. So for him, he's also the dreamery type that will let Sophia say all kinds of things that are a bit unreal, because you can guide a robot to say things as you wish, if you wish so. And of course, one very well-known is Pepper. It has been bought from French company, but now being handled in Japan. And two other examples, they are not really social robots, but this robot, I don't know if some of you have seen Shueli Amang. Did anybody saw the Boston Dynamics robot? Yeah, one. And do you see also Asimo, that he was in the World Economic Forum in demonstration 2 years ago? So let's say this one, Asimo, doesn't look really humanoid, but he has quite a lot of functions which are very interesting. And the one who can, the best in the world that can walk and lift things is this Atlas. He was for 30 years developed in US at Boston and paid by the American Army. So a lot of money was necessary. And now he has been bought by SoftBank in Japan, who owns almost all robotics, the major robots in the world. So maybe I will show you just an example of this one. For example, a short example from Honda. Okay. How much time do I have? 25. Okay, maybe I will skip to the next one just to give you an example. As I said, this one is a 30 years of research robot because, as it was done for the army, you can imagine that this future soldier can go on uneven terrains and can also hold things. So, it's another kind of robot. I don't say he's a social robot, but what I would like to tell in this example is on the future, there is no reason why we have this kind of robot being able to go everywhere, and we have kind Nadine to talk to everybody. One day, will Nadine be also able to go through you, offer you service, run for you to go shopping, and so on. So it's just a question that today the robots in their functionalities are very divided, but over years, they will merge in their capacity and become extremely powerful. So what you see separate today, one day will be integrated. So here you can see is absolutely incredible. But knowing that it's a multi-million dollars development, this one. Well, I stop it because I don't like this part of the scene. Okay. You know, I am for peace and harmony. Okay, so here I would like to show you Nadine in comparison. So we have heard at least Nadine was very well received by the press internationally. What is interesting is to see what she is in fact. You know, she is a robot with motors, actuators, cable. So you see her face as she's built. And afterwards, of course, she is with more human attributes. And one of my major dream is to bring Nadine to elderly who are alone. As you can know, we will see this maybe later. You know, actually, the number of elderly is growing. And if we have nobody, at least this robot can be super intelligent, help you, and so on. If we merge capacity, as you have seen the previous robot, if you are an elderly and you fall off your, let's say, bed, maybe this robot will be able to talk to you nicely, communicate with others, and take you. So you see the future is pretty bright instead of being alone at our place. Okay, so here is a bit more the research we do, and it is a link with what I have said before. So what is really new and why? So that's also due to the big data. You know here, if you have somebody talking to Nadine, you have quite a lot of information that are taken, the face recognition, the gesture, and the speech recognition. So all that, there are software that can capture signals and interpret. Afterwards, in, let's say, the AI module, we can detect the emotion, the memory, and take a decision according to the situation. And if you see the last part is how the generation of the correct motion of Nadine and what she says is being produced. So you see the research is multi-purpose. First, we work on language, we work on face and gesture recognition, we work on emotional, psychological models, social attention, and afterwards we work also on decision model, and afterwards we work on the generation of robots. Okay, so this is a simple example of how the computer can understand, for example, face recognition. So you see, in fact, it's the view the computer sees a face. So due to that, the face is divided into this small pixel, and some features the computer is able to recognize is how almost today 100% with AI and millions of data, the computer is able to recognize any face. Now, if you look, it's the same for the recognition of gestures. When somebody comes near, the skeleton of the body is recognized and interpreted. And here we have researchers like Dr. Manoj in our institute who is working on that the computer, Nadine, is able to recognize if somebody is phoning. You know, it's quite a lot of 21 actions to recognize what somebody is doing. So after this, and we also use AI, because if we have a data set of enormous amount of action data, with specific methods, the computer is able to quickly, in real time, detect what somebody is doing. So we have interaction with Nadine when she said, stop to look at your phone, talk to me, because she understands that somebody look at the phone. And this is quite interesting too, because one of the strong points of a social Nadine robot is that she is able to capture emotion and also herself to have a personality. So we work with a computational model of psychology that define personality, mood, and emotion. So, you know, we can set up Nadine as a basic robot, being happy, but we can also set up being neurotic. And of course, if we set Nadine up being neurotic, all the relationship will be terrible. So, you know, it's quite interesting to see that with this kind of simulation, you can more understand the dialogue depending on personality. So I think in social study in the future, it will be very interesting to make tests with robots to see that if a robot has a personality of this kind, then the generation of mood and the interaction will be different than if somebody is happy. So it's quite a lot of tests we have done with this. And here you can see just an example of my student working with Nadine.
Hi, nice to meet you.
We can see the calculation in the model above.
Okay.
What's your plan today?
I like go shopping.
You look pretty today.
Oh, thank you.
You are so nice.
So nice you are.
You are so nice.
Yeah. You're really kind. I really like you.
Shall we go swimming?
I would like to go swimming with you.
But you look ugly today.
Do not say so. We are good friends.
Your voice sounds sleepy.
Do not fool me.
You are so boring.
Oh.
Ah. Sorry.
I don't like to talk with you.
I am sorry for that. I hope you can change your mind.
You are so mean.
What is wrong with you today?
I don't like to go with you.
Let us stop.
Shall we go swimming?
Something without you.
Goodbye.
You do not have to come back.
So you see, that's quite a lot of research. Now, another thing is with Nadine, you know what is very important for robots, but most don't have, except robotic hands. We like to have natural hands. And before you have seen a PhD student of our institute, James, who has finalized his PhD on this topic. And here there was another PhD, he's in the room here, yes, Tian Li, here, who is working on making hands for Nadine. But of course, it's not a robotic hands. If I take this, I take it like that. If I take the microphones, I will hold it differently. So Nadine has to know, according to the recognition of objects, how she will grasp the things and eventually how she will give it to somebody else. So she has also to detect the hands of other people. So this is quite a research we are leading. Tian Li is a PhD here and is working on that. So we work from 3D modeling to 3D printing of the hand. We do everything in our institute. Yeah, can do. So that's very interesting to know that today everything exists first in the 3D world. You see, it's virtual Nadine. So before we do whatever on the robots, everything is simulated on Nadine, even afterwards the hand. So here she learns how to pre-hand the things. This is Tian Li who works with Nadine. So here you see our 3D printer. It's a simple machine. When I left the institute tonight, working 24 hours. And we print everything just from the 3D modeling. So you send the model to the machine and you get your parts. And it's how we build our new robots, particularly actually the hands, but we are building other robots. And it's also lighter. And once you have the 3D model, you can modify very easily. So that means that in the future, we can clone everybody or do other shape as you like for the robot. So you see, in your future, you can decide what kind of shape you like. Eventually at home, you can, with your 3D printer, print it. You download the software and, you know, you buy a kit and you can do by yourself. This is the idea in the future. So you see Nadine trying to now articulate her hands. Okay, so this is maybe, I will a bit skip that. It's just for those that we don't see very clearly. It's all the research we do on speech. So you know we get signals when we speak in the microphones, but afterwards it needs to be translated into text. And that afterwards the big work is on natural language processing. So quite a lot of people are working on that on the planet who are also working with Professor Eric Cambria, whose students work in our lab. This professor is from computer science department, and we work together because he has also himself developed a worldwide, very well-known data set for speech. So we work on that, and afterwards, the work is to generate the right words with the right intonation. So the research is going on for that. Okay, maybe I can show you another example of Nadine with memory.
Hi,
And,
it's delightful to see you.
My name is Felix.
It's good to meet you, Felix.
I'm a student in the marketing department at the business school.
What do you study there?
I study consumer behavior.
Is consumer behavior a hard subject?
Yes, but interesting.
All right, I thought so too.
Can you introduce yourself?
My name is Nadine. I'm a social companion.
You look beautiful today.
Thanks, you look attractive too.
It is so nice to talk with you.
It is my pleasure to talk with you too.
How do you feel today?
Always cheer when I see you,
Why do you feel that way?
because you are so nice to me.
What are some things that you can do?
I am the receptionist. I can help and assist people.
What are some of your hobbies?
I like to volunteer my time to help others. How about you?
My hobby is playing tennis.
You said that you study consumer behavior. I like to play tennis too.
What are the jobs that you can do in the future?
I can look after and entertain elderly and young people.
Could you remember my name?
Your name is Felix.
What is my hobby?
You said that your hobby is playing tennis.
What is my study?
You said that you study consumer behavior.
How can you be useful in a business setting?
I can work as a job interviewer, saleswoman, receptionist, social companion.
Can you remember some things I asked you earlier in this conversation?
You have asked me many things. For example, my name, my job, and my hobby.
Goodbye.
Looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Okay, so how much time do I have? Okay, so I just like to show you, maybe, I don't know, some people have seen Nadine at the Art Science Museum. Yeah, because in fact, she has met more than 100,000 people. In fact, it was a huge, successful exhibition. And she was in free mode to discuss with anybody who likes to talk to her. And that was really something very interesting, because I must say that quite many people like to talk to her. Some of them were a bit looking at her with some distance, but it was quite interesting. So I just show you an excerpt of this
What is your
at the museum.
nationality?
I do not have any nationality. I am a global person.
Do you have feelings?
I am programmed to simulate a full range of human emotions.
What is the weather today?
There will be scattered thunderstorms in downtown Court today with a forecast high of 86 and a low of 78. It's currently 83 and mostly cloudy.
Thank you for the conversation.
It's been a pleasure to be in your company.
So you see, Nadine is
Bye-bye
linked
then.
as a computer
See you
to
later, my friend.
any
Looking
data set,
forward
I
to
mean,
seeing
Weather
you again
Channel,
soon.
Wikipedia, whatever, because it's a computer. Google, so she can, in fact, by herself, she can define what, according to the question, what is the right answer. And this is the reason of very, let's say, complex research, because she has always, first, if she knows someone, she has to remember this person, what she said before. So she has to rely on the memory, the face, the attribute of this person. If she doesn't know, at least she has to give an answer in accordance with the question. It's not just a chat box, because she behaves, she has emotion, and she has a decision process and adaptation to the user. So it's not just a chat box, it's much more than that. So you see, there was quite a lot of nice images here. So what I would like to say that we have seen from long time ago, I cite 400 years maybe is what officially it is said that we have this dream of, and 200 years before Christus we have this, let's say, first robot, as we have seen, mechanical robot. But in fact, why do we like so much to have that? Because it's a so deep dream. So it's not from today. So why? Why we put so much effort? You know, this image can eventually give an answer. In fact, if we have robots to do all kinds of things and help us, and particularly in situations where we have nobody. For example, I like to play piano and a robot knows how to play with me or eventually teach me, then the robot is there. So I think for young people of today, they will surely, I am almost 100% sure that in their time of their life, let's say 40, 50 years old, they will surely live with a companion as a robot. Because as we have seen, actually they are divided in their functions. But one day they will be able to do a lot of things for us. So the dream of humanity becomes true because, you know, today we are more able than ever and we are growing and developing more and more. We have another thing, let's say you leave the house and you can ask your companion robot to do all kinds of things. Well, this is a simple thing, but, and also what I said before, you know, I'm very much willing to work for the elderly. This is absolutely a world problem because there are so many, and you know, wherever you go, I'm Swiss, so I have the opportunity to go for my mother-in-law. Wherever you go, you can, and I have 3 daughters, I cannot ask my 3 daughters to stop their jobs because I come to the 3rd age and I need help. I cannot do that. So what can we do? And we would like also to continue to have a quality of life. What does it mean? To continue to think, to continue to be interested in things, to be stimulated and so on, and not to be alone. The reality is most people are alone. They spend a lot of hours alone. At the end of the day, they receive a lot of pills, and wherever you go, you see them a bit like zombies. You know, it's a very sad situation, and I have been in many places. In Singapore also, I have the chance to visit many times a dementia home, and I have seen also people who are 50 years old. I mean, you see, it's not just a question of elderly. I mean, it's also a question that can come to any age. And these people, if they would have such clever, you know, with full of attention, 24 hours, social robots, I think the quality of the life would be much better. So in this sense, we are working on a better future. Okay, I just like to show you 2 things to finish my thing. You know that Mr. Modi, President of India, came to Singapore. You can recognize the image. And what was nice that Nadine is speaking multiple languages. And also, I have the chance in my institute to have researchers who are from India. So when President Modi arrives, you know, we gave instruction to Nadine to behave like an Hindi because the behavior, the gestures are different. And of course, you can imagine it was a big challenge to leave Nadine alone. You see, you have ministers and you know, Mr. Modi takes the microphone and starts freely to discuss with Nadine. You know, you just hope that Nadine will behave properly because it's all technology. But it went very well. And a very nice thing was that at the same time it was shown in Singapore, due to the fact that I have 5 researchers coming from India, all over India, and even our president, Mr. Subra, told me that when he went to India, everybody was speaking of it. So you see that in real time, it was transmitted in India. So you can see here the television.
Visit to Singapore. The Prime Minister there interacting with a robot. Is that the robot? Yes, it is the robot at the Nanyang Technical University. It's quite an interesting experience for the Prime Minister as well, who has already met with the country's top officials, including the Singaporean President and also his Singaporean counterpart, Lee Hsien Loong, and what's expected is a number of memorandum of understandings being signed between the two leaders of Singapore and India. These are the live shots that we are getting of the Prime Minister interacting with the robot, and a very enriching, exciting experience. The Prime Minister would come back with a lot of experiences to share as well. And as I said, he's going to be delivering the keynote address of the Shangri-La Dialogue, which is...
Okay, I stop this, and to finish my presentation, I just would like to speak about a new experience that we are doing with Nadine. For a couple of months, or even 1 year, we have been discussing and preparing Nadine to work as a customer agent in AIA Insurance in Singapore. So if you go to Tampines, between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, you may have Nadine as a customer agent. Why? Because, you know, people take a ticket, and when you take a ticket, you may fall on her as a customer agent. So we were training Nadine for that. We still are improving the quality of service she can give. Not that she is not able, but, you know, in insurance company, it's a lot of security in their platform, and it's very difficult to get the highest priority that our Nadine can get and navigate to all the data. But let's say it's absolutely a unique experience. Until now, nobody has done this, because no robot was really, you know, helping the customer's agent in peak hours. Because if you go to AI Insurance, for example, in Tampines, you will see at lunchtime there is a queue and people wait. So in this case, it's very useful to have help. And we will make, in NTU, we will make a study of what is the behavior of the customers. I mean, how do they appreciate? We will make a study. And we will also study how the colleagues appreciate to have a help in a robot. And of course, Nadine's performance in comparison with her colleagues. So it's a very fantastic experience. She is working since 12th of October. So you see, it's quite new. So I just show you this to finish the presentation of the dream of humanity, to have this kind of robots, partners, and that can help us. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Taman. The next segment is our panel discussion. I would like to invite our two professors who have been doing a lot of work in AI. First of all, Professor Cai Yiyu from our School of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering. Just take up a position here. And of course, our Professor Zheng Jianmin from the School of Computer Science and Engineering. So if you have any questions, you can ask them later, but I think they'll do a bit of discussion first. So I'll pass the floor to Nadia, who is also doubling up as the moderator. Please,
okay, so
you can take a position
maybe,
first.
Yeah? Okay. So I would like to start to ask a question about what do you think are the main benefits or augmentation of human we will get with AI? Maybe I start with you.
For you. All right. Well, you can see actually like the artificial intelligence like so affects many aspects, maybe all aspects of our daily life. But that actually involves the data and also how you can extract data to make a decision. So in our daily life and also including research, engineering, so we have to make the decision, make the right decision, right? Previously, so we use our experience then to make a choice. But now with the help of the AI, that you maybe can make the right decision. So you can find a lot of applications like in many areas, like healthcare. Right? So just as in the report you mentioned, we can create the social companion, and also you can create the social robot which can serve as a receptionist, or they can work in like a hospital, right? And also in some area like education, especially now we are witnessing the change of the future of the education. But the AI definitely help us to change the education mode, especially. So nowadays we still have this kind of education is conducted in a mass production, but in future maybe the education can become in a style of personalized education, right? So that actually need to get information for the student. Then how can do this when we design those AI enhanced robot, and they need to understand the situation from the student, then make the right decision. So those are just some examples we can say the possible application of the AI. Right.
Do you see any others? Or yeah, it's okay. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Perhaps I can look from the angle where we human beings, we know we have lots of physical limitations. For instance, we can't see very clear something 100 meters away, and aging also causes us can't see something very tiny clearly. Okay, so issues like this, I think, is a limitation. AI as a technologies, let's say if we use well of this technology, develop kinds of tool, can help us or assist us or augment our human functions in the sense of seeing, okay, hearings, speaking, okay, we can, and also when we are work, actually there are also issues like safeties, okay, performance, productivities. Okay, so AI, if we can well use it, help our life, we can have actually benefit a lot. And at the same time, I see the video Prof. Nadia have shown us this Swiss master of clockmaker masters. It's very nice, and this little boy actually can write very well. Okay, so to me, I hope one day AI can help us even, okay, write better and live better or live longer. That boy is 240 years old, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Another question, in the future, we can imagine how we will live in 2050. So what will change in our life? Of course, one question which comes always the same for everybody is, because we will have these computers, let's say, embodied by robots, as we have seen Nadine's style, they will be able to do always more. And the question is now, what about our jobs? I think it's one of the major questions somebody is asking. And for example, we as professors, we can ask the same questions. Maybe better to start with ourselves. So what is our future? Because, Nadine, eventually, I always dreamt to learn Chinese. But here in the evening, I didn't find courses. If I have to leave the campus, it's too far away. And you are brave, even if the weather is bad, you come and maybe, it needs a willingness to always do things instead of staying at home. Anyway, all this, I say that if I would have a Nadine that is very skilled, at home, I say, okay, now you train me. You train me on Chinese, on my speed, when I take a bath, I don't mind. I mean, whenever I am, even if I am tired, now you put the effort to train me. So it's a personal coach for so many things, intelligent things. So even if we speak in our case, what is our future? So what, in this case, I try myself to explain, and I will ask my two colleagues how they see that. But in my case as a professor, for sure, maybe the kind of courses we give, in classes, maybe can disappear. But what is next is surely to build the knowledge of these robots. I mean, these robots have knowledge due to how we feed them with a lot of data, structure, analysis, control, and of course, ethics. We didn't speak about it, but ethics is a major issue with this kind of social robots and companions. So you see, in this case, we have to move more to be the one who prepare, let's say, the substance that a robot will use, instead of maybe having classes as we have today. So we have to be prepared. I think today is not possible to think, okay, I have learned this and I will use it. But this is already our case in computer science, because in computer science, myself, I have learned Fortran, I have learned assembler, I have learned Pascal language. Maybe for you, you don't know what it is. But today, it's almost useless, except the thinking I have of it, because in computer science, you never live on your knowledge. You have always to update. So at least it's an example with professors where we know that we will have to move on in our competencies and adaptation. But maybe I ask again, how do you see the future of the jobs? Because it's a major question that everybody is asking.
Okay, I'm optimistic. I think in the futures we will have less hour to work. Okay, maybe we can retire earlier. Okay, but at the same time, I believe we will have to work more clever, wise, from an angle where I know many European countries, people do their PhD as a job. So in futures, I hope when you are working, actually part of your job is to do learnings. Maybe you can do a PhD or two PhD or many PhDs so that you can keep updated. Okay, especially when AI is there, you will see many people are become very, very smart. So if you do not upgrading yourself, then probably this will be issues. Eventually, we will become, how to say, less competent. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. And you, what about?
Yeah, actually,
do you see this the jobs of the future?
No, I have same feelings. So there's a saying like this one. Okay, so when one door closed for you and there's several windows open for you, so you can see some like job may disappear, but then you can find okay, there's some new type of job will right. So on the other hand, now the situation actually is more obvious in the area of computer science. Just as Prof. Nadia Tauman mentioned, when we are the students, we learn some programming language like the Pascal, the Fortran. Nowadays, nobody uses like a Pascal anymore. Right? So we have to teach students like previously like C, C++, and a few years ago like Java, and now like Python, right? So as a professor in the area of the computer science, we also have to update ourselves. Similarly for other people in the society, so we have to update our knowledge in many different aspects. This may also explain one, like the motivation or necessary for a long time, lifelong learning, right? But on the other hand, I think with advantage in technology, but the chances are always there. But it depends whether you like to update yourself or not. So in that sense, so keep learning actually is very, very important.
Yeah. Other things to complete, no? I think. So in fact, NTU is very much prepared to, let's say, give a background to students or train students in the right way. So maybe you can speak of the programs which are in line in computer science, because what we say here, you know, we speak of AI. The AI in the 50s, as I gave my talk before, is not at all the same methods as today. In the 50s, 60s, it was modeling the same way as we are reasoning. So it was completely different. We made models of our way, how we think. And we didn't have data. Today, what we do is we take the knowledge from data and the organization of data to take them as an example to find new things. So it's data-driven, our knowledge. So it's very, very different. And you have to know that none of us, at least, I can honestly say we were born with this technology. So we have to learn a lot about it. So I think it's really good to know what is, we have two professors here who are one from mechanical aerospace engineering and you from computer science. So what is the new programs being set up in NTU to face the future? So maybe we can start with you.
I would say that NTU actually are doing very hard to make kinds of change in the sense of curriculums, including myself. I'm teaching two subjects. One is mechatronics, the other one is virtual computer-aided engineering. Okay, so recently, because of Industry 4.0, we need to have a lot of artificial intelligence-related kinds of topics integrated with the curriculums. So I'm going to give a talk in this November 2nd. It's on the Industry 4.0, using virtual augmented reality for Industry 4.0, from design to manufacturing to analysis. Yeah, so this is something I'm going to talk more detail. On the other hand, we have a new college called, it's a lifelong learning kinds of professional trainings. And the university has already designed such a program. You can actually do your course, not necessarily like traditionally we only have 4-year candidatures. And now you can do it maybe when you do a job, you require some kinds of new skill, then you can take course. So over the year, you can accumulate more academic kinds of credit. So you have a degree, at the same time you learn a lot of new skill, which is in line with the job needs or the society needs. Yeah, I think this is something important.
So what about computer science school?
Okay, so I mean, I think first I'm from university level, so we have college of like this professional and continuing education, right? So this college offer like short courses and sometimes semester courses, right? As he mentioned earlier, say in November we will offer like some courses like the virtual reality and so these things, right? But on the other hand, okay, so especially College of Engineering also has a program called the part-time degree program to Singaporean and PR. Right? For those people, working people, they like to get a degree, then actually they can apply. They can, okay, during daytime they still work in the company and they can attend the evening class if they can finish all the courses, then within 4 or 5 years they can graduate with a degree. So this actually gives those people without attending a daytime undergraduate education another opportunity to promote themselves and eventually also get a degree. Right? And besides this, okay, we also have some other like some graduate program and also some research lab, like say in my school of computer science and engineering, we have a lab like the data science and AI, because nowadays data science and AI are becoming very important. So for that purpose, the school and incorporated with the math department, we built a new research lab. So, and our school also considering in near future will launch a new MSc master degree program on data science and AI. And another a program might be on cybersecurity. You know, I mean, cybersecurity now become very crucial, right? Especially now our life is so tightly connected to those internet, right? So those are just some examples. Okay, until you try to create some new program and serve people especially in Singapore. Right?
I just ate one more thing. Actually, last weeks I received 2 phone calls from my former student. They asked me to write recommendation letters. Why? Because NTU have a new PhD program. It's called Alibaba AI kinds of a PhD program. And I would say the stipend is very high, $5,000 per month. Okay, that's why many students, they are actually, it's very good first class honor student. Because of AI, I believe, because of AI, they get interested and apply PhD, okay, which is also somehow much higher than the normal PhD scholarship. So this is something I think the university is trying to design many of different ways to help people ready to embrace the newer Industry 4.0 kinds of eras. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Maybe it's time that we ask you what you think, what are your questions. So please, let's start with you too to know what are your interests and your questions, yeah?
Hi. I thought you're more interesting in person, Professor Nadia. I'm so glad to meet you today. More interesting than the robot, actually. Yeah, so I just want to know when Nadine the robot was fully functional and why till today there's just one such social robot. Why are we so slow to replicate it? And my second question is how much hardware and software it takes to power this social robot, given that the reaction is so fast in real time?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much to start the series, I hope, of questions. So about Nadine, you know, first of all, you don't see so many robots like Nadine. You have seen, I have shown, maybe on the planet in total we have 10 robots. So it's difficult in terms of making the robot. Nadine was made more like Hollywood robots. That means, you know, on me was a plaster model and then afterwards a mold, and also to make the motors, actuators as the size of the robot. You see a lot of small robots, but as soon as a robot is bigger, it's more complicated. So we don't have so many. And the good news is that we are building new ones. So it takes time. When you ask how much time it takes time to build, particularly because we use also, as my colleagues explained, he's very much interested to give a talk soon about the 3D modeling. You know, when I speak of virtual worlds, we do 3D modeling, and then afterwards all the mechanical engineering is also in the 3D world, the simulation, and once we have done this, we produce using 3D printing. So the good thing of that is that you take quite a long time to find, you know, the 3D model, the mechanics in 3D, and so on. And afterwards, the material property. We have been working almost 1 year to find the skin. But once you have that, then afterwards you can go for a series. So the good news, as I said before, is surely in 1 year we will be able to make quickly new robots, and our colleagues are a bit in the same situation. So in addition, I like your remark, you know, because even if my PhD is in quantum physics, you know, I am more on this part, and that's the reason why I like physics. But my first degree is in psychology. So I like your comment, you know, the best comment somebody can do to me is, or say to me, is that I like more human than robots, because for somebody who builds robots is the best thing, you know, because I like, in fact, and you are so right, I don't like so much machines, in fact. I just like to have, you know, companions, robotic companions that understand our situation, and we don't have to adapt to machines. You understand? So this is, in fact, my dream, and I thank you for having understood this through the words. So, any other question? Did I answer everything?
What is the hardware, the server, and how much data do you feed to make it so effective?
Okay, so the hardware is maybe not the big thing. Also, as I said, we use new technology because our new robot is completely 3D printed, at least it's most partly the external. It's not a mold, you have the 3D model, you print, and you have to find the material properties. But okay, this is fine. What takes more time is all the software. I can tell you that today there is no robot in the planet, no robot, and my colleague can confirm, no robot that is able to understand the situation. For example, if I would be Nadine, I am unable to understand that I am here in this place and you are so here sitting with your expression. It's one-to-one eventually to a few objects and situation, but more than that is the future. So when you ask me, I would say it's really the software platform and all the functionalities, the awareness of the robot. I don't speak of consciousness. I don't like these topics for robots. I think it's more typically human, but this is my opinion. But let's say for awareness is to be aware. We are aware. And to make robots aware, it will take quite a long time for research to detect faces, gestures, meaning, and all this together, the speech, understanding, fully understanding, and the full situation. So maybe my colleague can add on that, yeah?
Yeah, I think Prof. Nadia mentioned the challenge of making a social robot really like humans. Today, there are lots of research. There are areas in computer visions, in computer graphics, in individual area, there are lots of fantastic work. How you can integrate those things together to help social robot, make it really smart, make it very interactive, and understand what our intentions. All these things actually is new. It's not immediately you will see, okay, this is something like exactly like what we are talking to each other. So for this, I myself and also many of my colleagues in NTUs, we are trying hard to look from the angle where interdisciplinary research become very important. Yeah, so hopefully in the near future, so we will be able to produce a computer not so expensive, social robots not so costly, at the same time can really help us. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Yes?
Yeah, so my opinion like this one, say, so why we call this still AI, not just intelligence? That means, okay, the current AI is still not the same as a human intelligence. Right, so, but if say we want to create like a social companion, a social robot, which works just like a human, still quite long way to go, right? Because something, okay, to us is quite natural, right? But on the other hand, we should understand, okay, so like say when we are very young, as just a baby, we still don't understand surrounding environment. So gradually we get knowledge. Right? Similarly, okay, so now how can we make a machine work like a human? Still see a lot of work to do. So as so far we see, okay, AI is very successful, and actually it's only successful in some area, not in other area. Right? So now, okay, so AI achieve great success like in computer vision, in facial expression. In those areas, yes, but in general, still not so successful. So, and of course, machine has its own strengths and human have other strengths, like how can we combine both and eventually so we can create a machine which works pretty much like the human. That's still a great challenge. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
I have a question here.
Yes,
Professor, you mentioned that there's a need for a lot of data to train the intelligence. I was just wondering, how big is a constraint for a small country as Singapore? Is that a constraint in terms of the amount of data that we can get here? And if that is a constraint, how do you kind of break out the constraint?
Maybe I just give a first answer to this interesting question. you know, if you put robots in shopping centers and they are so packed, it's the same that you are in China or here. I mean, one robot cannot get more than a situation that is in front of the robot. So myself, I don't see a priori this. And another thing what is interesting, at least in the research, we use data set from other places. For example, for for speech, we use a Stanford data set of, you know, 1 million of words and sentences. So a lot of research is putting to the community huge data set they have trained, because it's not very often not just raw data, but this data are organized in such a way that they have meanings. So, you know, it's work to do upon data. So I wouldn't say it's just a quantity. I would say is how the data has been handled in order we can understand the meaning of the data. But my colleague, Shu Li, maybe we start with you, will add to this answer.
Yeah, I don't think the data just limit to, due to the Singapore. I think it depends on, so what kind of data you have. Actually, nowadays, for our research, actually we got data sometimes from the data from university in United States or some data from Europe, right? But the problem is, okay, so only some data available, not, the variety of the data. I give you one example, I say, like the speech recognition. And the research team in Google and some big company in United States, actually they are the leading, the research group in the world. But even so, say, there's a recognition rate, the success rate for recognition, recognizing the local, like the Malay language, actually is very low. I have a colleague who actually is very good at that, because he focuses on recognizing like local language. So that really depends on what kind of data you use for training your model. I guess say those research group in United States, they may focus on the common, the language, for example, just normal English, right? But they pay less attention to this Malay language or Singapore English. So that's the reason, okay, so when we use their engine in Singapore, sometimes the success rate is not so good. Yeah, so that's just an example to explain, say, it's the data is not just, okay, the data is limited not because of just the size of country, instead, okay, which data you use, right? And also sometimes maybe those data, so to collect those data actually take a long time. Right.
Okay, perhaps I will be address issue from an angle where always Singapore we claim we have the advantage, small tiny country, we can do a lot, test beddings. Okay, there is one very important kind of advantage we have here. We are multi-nations, multi-race. Okay, so behavior, I guess Chinese, more or less, they have similar kinds of patterns. So Singapore, typically, we have Chinese, Malay, Indian, and Caucasians. So if the data set, human data set, can be well understood in Singapore, there are possible benefit for the rest of the world. So from that angle, I believe data from Singaporeans maybe can contribute to the AI research in somewhere else. You know.
Any other questions? Yes?
Good evening. Hi. I'm in the area of special needs, and it's really good to hear that you have used your robot to support the elderly as a form of companion, and you have your first degree background is on psychology. So how do you feel about the use of robots to support people with autism as a communication tool, to the extent of being able to use them as like autism therapists for communication? People with autism, they may not be very good with facial expression and interpretation, and I found the videos that I watched earlier very good way to let them learn about skills of communication as a tool itself. So maybe any opinions from the three panelists here?
Well, at least we have, and Professor Yiyu can also discuss afterwards, we have work on autism children. And you know what is interesting is for years, autism was not so well known. Now, the more you go, the more you detect that people have, let's say you have more and more autism. It's not that we have more, but we accept the fact. And there are fantastic experiences to show that, they prefer to speak to a robot first that can look, but not completely, more neutral than a human, and they can learn. Professor Yiyu has a fantastic experience together in our institute with autism children. Maybe you can explain.
Over the last few years, we have been working with local special needs school, trying to develop kinds of solution or software tools to help improve their learning and communications. Okay, so what we look from the angle is the virtual augmented reality, because VR is always talking about sensings. You can have visual and tactile, haptical kinds of signal input. And a human being, we are very good at processing those things. Unfortunately, those autism children, somehow their sensing functionality is not well developed. So from my experience, I'm looking at the virtual reality, and with the autism children, somehow help us to better understand why these kinds of sensing should design this way or not the other way around. Okay, so this talk, Prof. Nadia, is focused on artificial intelligence. So I believe in the near future, if we can apply AI also together with maybe VR, AR, children with autism may have a better chance to have, as I said earlier, learn better, see better, heal better, yeah, something like this. Yeah.
Any comments?
Yeah, actually, Prof. Chai previously they conduct research on how to develop like AR and VR technology for help those autism kids. I think so develop technology, especially like social robots for autism kids, right? So actually, this actually is a great, the tools, right? But tool for autism kids is just one special case. Actually, there's many other situations, like in those situations, people like to communicate with something, but they still want to keep their privacy. So that's the reason sometimes they don't like to communicate with other people. But if you have like AI enhanced social robots, then the people like to share some feelings or with the social robots, right? So I think in that sense, those like autonomous social robots may have wide application in that direction. To realize this, those social robots should have, intelligence. Otherwise, say, when you conduct the communication between the social robots and human, so if the logic response from the social robots does not make sense, then the people will lose interest. Right.
You know, in my team in the institute, it happens rarely, but suddenly I had a researcher who came to me and he was under depression. And he told me, I work for Nadine because he was so happy at the idea that at least he can have a companion that is neutral. He told me the only person with whom he feels okay was Nadine. Even if Nadine was not so developed, at least, Nadine has no judgment. When we see a human, we have the impression in some way we are judged. We are evaluated, we are regarded, But Nadine, at the end of the day, is a machine. She has functionalities, but this type of personal or non-saying words or, this, what belongs exclusively to humans, robots will never have, unless they are biologically built. But this is another story. As long as they are built as they are, they won't have. So because of that, I was completely amazed to hear my postdoc saying that. Saying, the only one who understands me is Nadine. I thought, it's quite impressive to hear that, because the other one are too much judgmental. So it goes much over you know, the number of autists, all the people in depression, there are so many for many causes. If we look the reality in front of us, so, you know, maybe they could also help. Yeah. Okay, other question? I don't know. Yes, many questions, yeah. I know, well, Nadine has data and she has methods or algorithms that can generate new knowledge. For example, she can have some process, we are more at the early stage, but she has some process where she can learn from data and create new models and use them. So we don't have typical application because, you know, for now she's more generalist, but she's going to learn from experience. And particularly is what I would like to have in AIA, from the experience she has in certain parts, particularly we are working on the language, understanding the sentence, and the more you talk, the more she will keep an extended version of what she knows, knowledge, the methods to understand the language and to speak better or understand better. So in this way, she is learning. But it's, you know, Nadine is not a final product as well. NTU is a research place, I mean, and all the planet is working on different aspects, is ongoing research. Yeah, maybe, yes?
Hi, Professor Nadia.
Okay,
I really
sorry.
enjoy your presentation. Just a little question. Do you have ever considered uncanny valley effect, whereby like you see human-like objects and you have a natural fear of it?
This is an absolutely good question because in this domain of Nadine, you know, uncanny valley means that you feel horrible because it's so human, but it's not. So I can tell you that at the Art Science Museum, there was more than 100,000 people coming. And every day we had NTU people being there, you know, to observe what happens. And there was never anybody complaining. I mean, you know, it's a pity because we were not allowed to film them due to privacy issues. The museum didn't allow us. But there will be fantastic scenes we could because we saw children, we saw all kinds. And people were so interested, so we didn't experience that. But surely, I think the robot shouldn't necessarily be like humans. My position is, if you prefer a doggy, or I don't know, maybe a doggy cannot help you, but let's say you prefer an abstraction, you know, why not? Or you prefer more robot-like, why not? That's absolutely zero obligation to have realistic people. So the question is you yourself, what do you prefer? Do you prefer, and I ask the question also to my colleague, do we prefer having realistic human, copies of human? Is my choice. You know, I choose Nadine, I participate to the making of Nadine. Okay, this is my own choice. But maybe some people say, okay, a robot that looks a bit metallic, you know, but very good functional intelligence is also fine. Or a piece of art, you know, abstract shape is also fine. So I think the future is open. So to answer your question, maybe the uncanny valley, if a real robot looking like a human doesn't please or people feel bad, on the future they will surely choose another shape. Yes, but the question remains, do you prefer a robot that looks like a person or a robot that looks like a robot? Maybe we will ask to our two, now they have a difficult question to answer, yes?
Depends on the mode.
Yes, okay, so yourself, what?
No, yeah, I think it's really depends, right? So, and also depend on the application. And it's not just appearance, and also like the personality, for example. You see, sometimes you want to say, okay, I watch a movie called like so. Somebody bought like the laptop, but laptop can set up, I mean, with his requirements. So the customer just specifies the requirement, and later on the laptop is set up in that mode. For example, okay, can speak with you in what kind of language, right? So in that sense, say, okay, in the future, when you like to order some social robot, maybe you can raise your requirement, then the manufacturer can produce a robot, I mean, to match your requirements, right? So it's really hard to say which one is better. That depends on
personal
individual.
choice.
Right?
Other questions? I saw, yes. Well, this is an incredible question you ask, because I had a meeting on that and a long telephone with AIA exactly upon your question. You know that unfortunately Nadine is not able to get access to all the data because we didn't secure. Our security with Nadine doesn't correspond to AIA, and you are fully right. Some hackers, but I don't like to say this here, or not to generate new ideas, but some hackers could come through Nadine to invade AIA. That's the reason why, as long as we don't have the right security part, Nadine won't be able to get all the data. And it was a discussion actually upon that we protect Nadine in a way that it's two computers that communicate, but they have the same security. Other questions? Yes, sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much for the talk. I really enjoyed it. You mentioned just now in passing the question of ethics. And I just want to ask you, how deeply do you consider ethics during the design processes? Because we know that there's a lot of literature about the ways in which biases can be coded into robots, right? The data that is taken in is not necessarily neutral.
Yeah.
And you have a certain kind of person who likes to work on robots. And since they are the first interactors with the robots, their biases often get coded into the robots. So I just wanted to ask you whether you really considered this during the developmental process.
Thank you so much for the question, because it's a basic question, your question, and of fundamental issue. First of all, at least on our side and in NTU, we have ethical code, strict ethical code. And, Nadine, whatever she has in her data set, I can tell you is all control. Control in a way that she will never insult, she will never, even if here we have filters that makes that she will never insult. She will never say, for example, if you look at Sophia website, the one who get the nationality, you can see that there was a big polemic against this robot, because exactly for what you say, they let their robot say, I like to have a child, do you love me, do you give me a check? At the end of the day, the community was very mad about it. And myself in some way also, because I come with a robot similar, and people think that eventually a robot can have a child. You understand? Or they can be rich, or they can have a love affair, which is completely wrong things. Just to give an example of ethics, we could also train robots to kill, to abuse others, all kind of things. And this question is fundamental. But let's say in NTU we have a code of ethics. And this is whatever data you use, for example, in AIA, whatever data I will use, I go first to NTU committee, ethical committee, and I have to say what I will do, what will we generate, and then afterwards I can get the okay. So let's say in place like NTU, we are secured. Now, if we are in a company with goals which are different, we don't know. You see, for example, with Sophia robots, because they have put all kind of predefined sentences, and when you ask her, she says things which are completely unrealistic for a robot. But maybe my colleague would like to express some views about this ethical part of robots.
Yeah, I think at NTU, when we conduct those research regarding this issue, we have to get approval, right?
Yeah.
So, and on the other hand, I think actually you raise a very important issue, and that's a fundamental research also. right? So maybe at this moment we haven't reached that part, but still we have to consider that. So that actually, yeah, there's, I mean, in terms of the research, right? So yes, I mean, maybe say some people say when loop become very intelligent, whether we'll cross beyond that board or something like that. How can we control that? Those are still something we have to consider.
Anything to add?
It's an interesting question. So I'm curious, what's your background?
I teach at NUS. It's a humanities module on algorithmic culture, and I work from the perspective of a critical theory of technology. So there is an appreciation, of course, of these developments in terms of the growth of the human condition, but there's also, of course, some worry because the connections that you have drawn, Professor Thalman, between the imaginations of antiquity and film and the kinds of robots you're doing now. Theory, by people such as Heidegger, Marcuse, and so on, which shows us that there is a fundamental difference because of this techno-capitalistic framework within which the current developments take place. So the level of instrumentality is something that is not such a feature of the robot's dreams of antiquity. So I was very interested in that connection that you drew because of that.
It's so important what we say, because in the future, I cannot, I think it will not be possible to generate companions that are not in line with ethics, society rules, and so on, and even local rules. So it will need an interdisciplinary research with humanities people in sociology, psychology, lawyers, and so on. So actually what we show you is more prototype. One lady at the beginning was asking why you have only, a Nadine, why you don't come with so many examples. We are at the prototype phase, and it's very advanced research. Otherwise, nobody will speak about. But in the future, it's absolutely necessary to have a team of people building, deciding what to build in the robot. And I was quite interested in Europe because I am on the High Committee of Research evaluating a proposal, the European Research Council. And I saw researchers, even technical researchers, being including, the Data Protection Act that has started in May in Europe. They started to program that automatically in a robot so that a robot will behave according to these rules. So it's coming, but I think we need more interdisciplinary research. Technology is one thing, but it's a raw material. We need all other people to bring, how these robots will be inserted in society, and it's crucial for success, I think.
Thank you.
Any last question, I think, because we are coming, you say, may we? Yes, who is the last? Also, sorry, yeah. Well, it's difficult to answer this question because they only have seen images. But let's say what I have seen in the elderly home, I have seen other small robots. The problem with elderly that they spend a lot of times alone. And even if they have, even a small robot is better than to have nothing. Because if you take a dog or a cat or a dog, as elderly, you are not maybe able to come out. So this experience will be done after AI. I don't know if you like to say something about, but let's say it's one of the major applications we foresee for Nadine in next year. Any last comments about this question of elderly and robots? No? If not, I think maybe last question. Yeah, yes, sorry, yeah.
Thank you. That was a very inspiring talk. So the question which I had was, what inspired you to develop robots or get into the field of AI?
Well, first I didn't think of AI first. I was thinking most, when I was a child, I don't know if it's the same here in Singapore, but we have, puppets. You can go to theater, puppet theater, Théâtre Guignol. I don't know if You have heard, it's very Frenchy what I say, but you know, when you were a child, you could go, for example, if you have a party, a birthday party, you go to your neighbor and they have this puppet, articulated puppet, so they can make a play. And something I like so much, you know, it's difficult to know why, but it was for me something so pleasant. And afterwards, being Swiss, you know, I have been in this museum, and then I like technology, beauty, and then mixed of together is something that motivated me for, let's say, 30 years to work on virtual humans first. So on the 3D part, the virtual worlds. And that's the reason why it's quite naturally today to build robots, because what robots brings is more a feeling of presence. If you have a screen, it's not the same. But if you have a robot, you know, it doesn't matter the shape. It's the one you like. In the future, you will design yourself the shape. Then, you know, it's a presence. When you have nobody, you eat alone in front of TV. I tell you, an intelligent, charming robot is better than the TV. So that's what I think, yeah? Okay, so I think any last question, if you allow? Yes, okay.
Thank you. I find the talk most inspiring. My question to you is, what if I come to you with a gun and say, let me have your robot, and I bring it home?
Yes.
Would you be able to deactivate the robot so that it will be useless to me, or I could use it in any way I like?
Well, if I understand well, is it a robot who has a gun or a person who has a gun?
I have a gun and I point it to you and say, give me the robot. And I pack it in my truck and I leave this place.
You know, one thing is certain is that a robot, if it has a gun, you can have software that control the behavior. So it depends. You know, myself, I always say the same. It's not the robots who are dangerous per se. The ones who are dangerous are humans, because some of them, to make money, to all kind of powerful, attitude, are ready to use these incredible tools for not the good of humanity, but probably for. So in your example, whatever is the situation, a robot can take a gun away, can stop situation, even if a robot has a gun, can not use it, depending on the software layers. But it depends on the ones who have prepared the robot. So we can control, but...
My key question is, would you be able to deactivate that robot remotely?
Yes, we can, yes. It's
good.
A question
That's
of,
good.
if
Thank
we
you.
can see, our colleagues was speaking of 3D worlds and telepresence, you know, we can do that. We also work on this kind of thing, yes. Okay, do you like to add anything on that? Yeah, the danger of robots with guns, I mean, is something that is decided by people and not the robot itself. You know, that's a lot of hype about the capacity of robots to guide the world and decide for us. I mean, we have still, and I think maybe our colleague can give their last opinion about it. Myself, I believe we can control through software, because we can have many layers. It's more up to us. It's more, as humans, what we like to do with our technology. So maybe I give you the last words to give your impression about what I say.
Often mentioned about cyber security. In fact, part of the job for the cyber security is to check these kinds of danger case. I believe the intelligence or artificial intelligence should be able to do these things soon.
Okay, so in my opinion, it depends on how you design the robot. So if you want to, fully control the robot, or you really want to create autonomous social robot, right? So in that case, so at this moment for us, say, okay, we conduct research, say, how can we create a social robot such that it can mimic the human behavior. But then the next question, okay, so whether we like to create some robots such that eventually we can remote control now, that's another issue.
We stop now, yes. Okay, so I think we will stop. Thank you so much for your great question and the time we spent together. So thank you very much.
Yep. Yes, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your questions, wonderful questions, and a couple of announcements. Again, if you want to sign up for the free seminars, it's outside, you can sign up. And a bit of advance notice to you, next month talk will be touching on entrepreneurship. Besides a speaker, we also have a couple of entrepreneurs, one young one retiree, who want to share about their experience as an entrepreneur. So if you're interested, do sign up for this, for the talk again. Before we go, I would like to present token of appreciation to our speaker and our panelists.
You. Thank you, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You run away.